I travel a lot for work. I know, lucky me, right? But honestly, it's exhausting. Living out of a suitcase, bad coffee in strange places, the loneliness of unfamiliar ceilings at 2 a.m., it wears you down. Still, I try to make the best of it. I book Airbnbs instead of hotels, feels more personal, like I'm borrowing someone's life for a night instead of paying to be invisible. 2 weeks ago, I had a business meeting in a small mountain town I'd never heard of before, Bellwood Pines, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. You won't find much about it online, trust me, I looked after. But at the time, it had a few listings on Airbnb. One caught my eye, cabin retreat in Bellwood, isolated and peaceful. No reviews, which usually would have been a red flag, but the photos looked clean. Rustic wood interior, fireplace, big windows facing the woods. The host had a verified profile and the listing said, perfect for those seeking true quiet. I was exhausted from a delayed flight and 5 hours of driving, so I clicked book now without thinking too hard. The directions in the confirmation email were odd. Instead of a pin on the map, it gave turn-by-turn directions from a gas station just off the highway. Drive past the yellow water tower. Turn left at the mailbox shaped like a goose. Keep driving even when the road turns to dirt. Still, I followed it. I didn't have cell signal past the water tower, which wasn't surprising in the woods. But the further I went, the more I started to feel off. Like the forest had grown thicker. The light dimmed even though it was only 5 p.m. I didn't pass a single other car. Finally, I saw it, a small, dark wood cabin nestled between trees like it had been swallowed by them. No lights on, but there was a faint glow coming from the chimney smoke. When I got out of my car, the air felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Even the birds seemed to be holding their breath. I shook off the unease and knocked. The door creaked open before I could touch it. I hesitated on the porch, my knuckles still raised from the knock I never delivered. The door hung half open, tilted just enough to invite a curious step, or to warn me away. I called out, "Hello," into the dim, warm air that trickled out. No answer. Just the faint smell of burning wood and something else, metallic, maybe. I couldn't place it. Marjorie, with no photo on her profile. The message she'd sent was brief: cabin will be unlocked. Make yourself at home. Firewood stocked inside. That settled it. I pushed the door open and stepped into the cabin. The inside was surprisingly nice. Rustic, yes, wood everywhere, as promised, but clean and organized. A cast iron stove crackled softly in the corner, the only source of light. An old rocking chair sat nearby, swaying slightly, though I told myself it must have been from the draft. A small kitchen, a round dining table with a bowl of pine cones, who decorates with those anymore, and a spiral staircase leading up to what I assumed was the bedroom. The place felt lived in. Not like a sterile Airbnb, more like someone had just stepped out for a walk. A half-drunk cup of tea sat on the windowsill. A knit blanket was tossed casually on the arm of the chair. I even spotted a cat toy by the hearth, though no sign of a cat. That metallic smell lingered in the air. I chalked it up to old pipes or something in the firewood and dropped my bag by the door. There was no cell signal inside either. Not even a bar. I tried the cabin's Wi-Fi, the network name, Bellwood_warmth, popped up, but it required a password. I checked the info sheet on the counter. No password listed. That's when I noticed something strange. The sheet listed a phone number for the host, but instead of 10 digits, it had 7. Just 443-0021. No area code. No explanation. I was starting to get annoyed, but exhaustion was winning. I opened the fridge, empty except for a glass jug of water and a single apple. The apple was glossy, red, and sat too perfectly in the center of the otherwise bare shelf. I left it alone. I took the spiral stairs to the bedroom. The steps creaked underfoot, and I felt them slightly tilt, like the whole cabin might be off kilter. The bedroom was small but cozy. A four-poster bed with heavy quilts. A narrow window showing only black trees. As I laid down, I heard it, not creaking floorboards, not animals outside. But a voice. A woman, whispering from downstairs. "You're not supposed to be here yet." I sat up so fast I nearly fell off the bed. My heart was hammering in my chest. The whisper had been clear, not imagined, not the wind, a voice. A woman's voice, low and urgent, like she was just at the bottom of the stairs. I froze, listening. Nothing but the faint crackling of the fire downstairs. "Hello?" I called out, my voice catching on the edge of fear. "Marjorie?" No answer. I waited 30 seconds. A minute. Still nothing. "You're just tired," I told myself. "You didn't sleep on the flight. You drove 5 hours through winding forest roads. You're alone in a quiet house. Your brain's making noise out of nothing." Still, I grabbed the heaviest object I could find, a cast-iron bookend shaped like a raven, and crept back down the stairs, skipping the creaky step this time. The cabin was exactly the same. Fire still burning. Rocking chair still gently swaying. No open doors, no footprints in the light dusting of ash on the stone floor near the fireplace. And no one. I checked every room. Kitchen. Tiny pantry. Even opened the narrow broom closet near the front door. Empty. But the voice, it had sounded so real. So close. I even checked behind the curtains. Nothing. I finally sat in the rocking chair, trying to steady my breathing. The warmth of the fire helped, and I sat there long enough that I actually started to feel a little silly. Still holding that dumb bookend like a weapon. I laughed nervously to myself and set it down. That's when I noticed something I knew hadn't been there before. A second teacup. Next to the one by the window, still half full, was another. It was empty, but it hadn't been there when I arrived. I was certain of it. It sat just inches from the first, same pattern, same floral saucer, but bone-dry and still warm to the touch. I turned slowly and looked around the room. My skin prickled. I was being watched. But there were no windows on that side of the cabin. Just dark wooden walls and the humming silence of the forest pressing in. A log shifted in the fireplace with a crack. I jumped. I went back upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and climbed under the covers with my coat still on. The bed was surprisingly warm. Like someone had just gotten out of it. I didn't sleep right away. I lay there listening. Waiting. And just as I drifted off, I swear I heard that same woman's voice again, whispering. "He's almost here." I woke up drenched in sweat. The cabin was dark, the fire must have gone out in the night, but I could still hear something faint, something off. Not the wind, not the creaking of the old wood, but something like a soft scraping. Like someone was brushing their nails along the outside wall of the cabin. SKRRCH, SKRRCH, SKRRCH. It moved. Around the perimeter. Slowly. Deliberately. I didn't move. I just lay there, frozen beneath the quilt, every muscle coiled and tight. My heart was thudding so loud I was sure whatever was outside could hear it. Then, silence. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. When the sun finally started leaking through the narrow window, I forced myself up. My breath fogged in the cold air. I checked my phone again, still no signal. But now it was 7:42 a.m., and something was wrong with the light. It looked wrong. Too dim for morning, too pale. Almost as if the sun was rising behind a sheet of wax paper. I went downstairs to get some water and noticed 2 more strange things. 1. The second teacup had been washed and placed neatly on the drying rack. 2. A note now sat on the dining table in perfect handwriting. He doesn't like noise. Please be still tonight. That was it. No name. No signature. I stood there for several minutes, reading the note over and over. What did that mean? Who didn't like noise? And who wrote this? I didn't see any car, any host, any sign of another person. I opened the front door. The forest greeted me with the same unnatural stillness. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, no sign of the path I had driven in on. I looked left and right. Where there should have been tire tracks, there was now just pine needles. Smooth, undisturbed, like no car had ever passed through. I walked around the cabin to check the perimeter. There were scratches on the wooden siding. Long, thin, clawed lines. Tracing the length of the wall, circling the building. Like someone, or something, had walked around it during the night. Exactly where I'd heard the scraping. Worse, the cabin had no footprints anywhere. Not even my own. Like the ground had healed itself. I went back inside, locked the door, and checked the fridge again. The apple was gone. In its place, a row of 7 identical apples, all perfectly red, lined up like they were waiting for me. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And the cabin whispered. Night falls sooner in Bellwood. The whisper hadn't come from outside. It came from within the cabin, as if the walls themselves had spoken. I backed away from the fridge, the cold air brushing against my face as I shut the door with trembling hands. The row of apples was burned into my mind. Not their appearance, but their arrangement, symmetrical, evenly spaced, as if someone had carefully measured the gaps between them. I wanted to leave. I needed to leave. But the window beside the fridge no longer showed the trees. It showed night. Not the fading light of dusk. Not a passing cloud. Pitch black night. I checked my phone. 7:49 a.m. I stepped to the front door and opened it, and the forest outside was dark, full of shadows that didn't move, lit only by a full moon that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. I shut the door. Opened it again. Still night. I checked the time on my watch. 7:50 a.m. I paced the room in circles, gripping my phone like a lifeline. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Just me and the silence. That's when I noticed something else. The fire had restarted itself. Fresh logs. Healthy flames. No smoke, no scent of burning wood, just heat. And someone had placed a small ceramic bowl beside the hearth. Inside was a folded piece of paper. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. This time, the message read, "Do not leave the cabin tonight. He hates broken patterns. Patterns. Apples in a row. Scratch marks around the walls. Teacups, washed and reset." What the hell was this place? I decided I needed to document everything. I opened my notes app and began typing what had happened so far, dates, times, every detail. But the moment I typed the phrase, "the woman whispered," the screen glitched. Lines of text rewrote themselves. "You are the guest. The guest must not write. The guest must not remember." My phone shut off. I stood frozen in the cabin, light flickering, moonlight bleeding through the narrow bedroom window above. Then I heard it again, not the whisper, not the scratching. This was something else. A second set of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, walking upstairs. But I was down here. And I was alone. The door creaked open before I could touch it. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the air was still, dead still. There was no breeze, no rustling of leaves. Just silence. I hesitated. "Hello." I called into the open doorway, feeling incredibly stupid. "I'm the guest." I booked this place. Nothing. I stepped inside. The air was warmer in the cabin, but stale. Like it hadn't been breathed in months. Dust floated in thin, hazy shafts of light cutting through the window slats. The room looked just like the photos, a small sitting area, fireplace, burning low but steady, a simple kitchen, and stairs leading up to a lofted bedroom. Everything was clean. Unnaturally so. The kind of clean that felt preserved. Like a showroom, not a place someone lived. I closed the door behind me, and the second it latched, the fire flared up. I jumped. It wasn't dramatic, just a flicker, but it startled me enough to make me laugh nervously. Okay, I muttered to myself. Spooky cabin antics. That's fine. I explored a little. There were no personal belongings. No books. No photographs. No food in the fridge except a single red apple sitting in the middle of the otherwise empty shelf. The bedroom upstairs had fresh sheets, neatly folded. No closet, just a small dresser with 3 empty drawers. I placed my bag beside the bed and sat for a moment, listening. Still nothing outside. No traffic. No wind. Just the slow ticking of an antique clock downstairs. I turned it over in my head, the weird directions, the stillness, the door creaking open like it knew I was there. But I was exhausted, and something about the isolation, eerie as it was, felt welcome. I made some instant coffee from a packet I had in my bag and sat by the window, watching the woods. That's when I saw it. A woman, standing between the trees. Just far enough that I couldn't see her face. She didn't move. Didn't wave. Just stood. Watching the cabin. Watching me. When I looked again, she was gone. I stayed at the window for a long time, eyes scanning the tree line. She was gone, or hidden, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Like the cabin had taken a breath. Like I wasn't just inside it anymore, but inside with it. Eventually, I pulled myself away. Night was falling fast, and the shadows outside thickened unnaturally quick. I couldn't see the woman anymore, but I also couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she didn't move. The way she didn't seem to breathe. I heated a can of soup and tried to shake it off. Just a local. Maybe a neighbor. Probably a trick of the trees. But even as I forced myself to eat, I felt eyes on me. Inside the cabin. I turned around more than once, convinced someone was standing just behind me. I even checked the hallway and behind the curtains. Nothing. At 9:42 p.m., the antique clock stopped ticking. Just stopped. Dead silent. I approached it. Its second hand hung motionless, stiff and lifeless like it had forgotten how to move. The silence that followed was complete. I couldn't hear the fire. Couldn't hear the wind outside. Couldn't even hear my own heartbeat, as if the air had become too thick for sound. Then the whispering started. Soft at first, like someone speaking from inside the walls. Just out of reach. Muffled. I pressed my ear to the wood. It got louder. Still muffled, but clear enough to make out phrases. He wakes when time stops. Don't step outside. He watches through mirrors. He hates when they write. I stumbled back, heart pounding now, breath short and shallow. I grabbed my phone, still dead. It had never turned back on after the message earlier. Then a noise from upstairs. The floorboards creaked. One step. Another. Slow. Heavy. I stared up the stairwell. I knew I hadn't gone back up since unpacking. The sound paused. Then the unmistakable sound of something dragging. Like wood across wood. A chair. I crept up the stairs, each step like a drumbeat in my chest. The bedroom door stood open, just like I left it, but something was different. The dresser now had one drawer pulled open. Inside was the apple from the fridge. Next to it, a note. Written in perfect, looping handwriting. You brought noise. He heard you. Stay quiet tonight, or he will come down. I didn't touch the note. Didn't touch the apple either. I just stood there, feeling the heat of the fire downstairs licking faintly up the stairs like fingers probing for something. I wanted to leave. I should have left. But I knew, somehow I knew, opening that front door again would be like stepping into a trap. The kind of trap you don't see until your foot's already caught and the forest starts whispering your name. I went back downstairs, slower this time. The cabin felt heavier, as if my every step added a pound to the air. I sat in the armchair by the fire and stared into the flames, doing my best not to think. I didn't turn on any lights. I didn't speak. I barely let myself breathe. At 10:31 p.m., the fire went out. Not slowly. Not with a fizzle or a crackle. Just gone. One moment, warmth. The next, cold and blackness. I stayed frozen, every sense alert. I was about to get up and relight it, when I noticed something in the fireplace. A new note. Still warm, edges singed. You're still too loud. My throat dried. I hadn't made a sound. Not a word. Not a single footstep since coming back down. And yet the cabin knew. I stood very slowly, muscles tight with dread. The shadows had shifted around me. Stretched long in the wrong direction, as if the moon outside had moved, or multiplied. I stepped toward the window, hoping for stars or a sliver of normality. Instead, I saw the woman again. Closer this time. 10 feet from the glass. Same position. Same posture. Only now, she wasn't alone. To her left, slightly behind her, a tall shape. Towering. Shadowy. Unmoving. Featureless. I blinked. They were both gone. I backed away from the window and bumped into something behind me. A whisper brushed my ear, not loud, not spoken. Felt like a thought not your own. You invited him in. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Every instinct in my body screamed not to move, not to look, as if whatever stood behind me fed on attention. I stood there for what felt like hours, breath held, body trembling. Then, slowly, I took one step forward. Then another. I didn't hear footsteps behind me, but I felt them. Felt the presence mirror my every move. Like a second shadow tethered to my spine. I made it to the kitchen. The lights were on now. I hadn't turned them on. And something had changed. The apple. It was on the counter now. Not in the fridge. Not in the drawer. Right beside it, a kitchen knife, clean, glinting, and another note. The house listens. The woods watch. But he walks when the apple bleeds. I backed away from the counter slowly, eyes fixed on that perfect, red skin. I didn't touch it. I didn't even breathe too hard near it. I heard a soft knock behind me,